I'm Angela Thomas, partner consumer and retail at Deininger Consulting in India. Headquartered in Germany, Deininger Consulting is one of the world's leading executive search and leadership consulting firms. I'm elated to have Rajesh Sahai with me today. Rajesh is a senior HR leader, currently the senior vice president and global head of HR at Wipro Consumer Care and Lighting. He began his career in 1990 with NTPC and brings with him over 3 decades of experience across multiple industries, both in private and public sectors. He's been with his current organization since 2010, and prior to that, led HR for the offshore captive center in Hyderabad for UBS. Earlier, he worked with Wipro Technologies and Arvind Mills in various HR roles. Welcome, Rajesh, to Deininger Leadership Talk Series.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me here.
Lovely. As you know, today's theme is leadership resilience. And I would, perhaps start with the question, what does resilience mean to you in the context of leadership?
I think it's a very relevant topic which you have picked up. The last 1.5 years, COVID has really tested not only individual, but organizations and government for resilience and agility. So definitely a very, very relevant topic, and we all would have a good amount of learnings out of this incident, which all of us have lived. So a very simple understanding of resilience for me is one who can sustain in adversity. Very simple. Keep going even when the chips are down. But what's more important, and that's critical for any senior leader, is ability to continue doing what you believe in. Because many times people don't accept what you're doing, or they are a little edgy about it, or I'd say iffy about it. But your conviction is very, very important to surge ahead when you believe in something. That's important. And as we tell our marketing guys that you may be very creative. That's right. So marketing is about creativity, but only creativity will not take you there. You have to have the conviction to take your idea forward. And finally, we say that if you have a creativity and the conviction, then you should have the resilience to take it through. Because it's not easy to get a new idea accepted fast. Right? People will have status quo mindsets. People will be dismissive about your ideas, so on and so forth. And that's where it becomes very important that if you're not so-called thick-skinned to withstand rejections or tepid comments, you will fail. So that's what we highlight to people, that creativity, conviction, and finally resilience to take it through. So that's what we understand about resilience, and this is what we propagate to our leaders.
No, interesting. And I agree. And I'm glad you said, it's perhaps come up more in the last year and a half. And creativity, conviction, so important. But how critical do you think is this self-reflection, especially given the current context in the 18 months that have gone by, or self-awareness to build overall leadership resilience? How does one overcome the fear of being judged? There was this phase where people could not say, I don't know. How do you overcome that feeling, and how critical is that for self-reflection and self-awareness?
Self-awareness is critical for any individual, because if you're not self-aware, you will not succeed. And that's where dissonance happen. Like if you do take a 360-degree feedback, which is very common practice in most of the corporate organizations, there is a self-rating, and then there are ratings by manager, peers, and internal customers. The first thing which I see, or when I teach managers how to read this report, first thing I tell them is that look at your self-rating and contrast it with other group ratings. And if it is in line with a minor variation, that means you are self-aware. you know what you are, and that's exactly how people see you. But if there's a huge variation, say if you have rated yourself 10 on 10, and your other average scores are hovering around 6 to 7, then there's a lack of self-awareness. There's a lack of self-awareness, and that's a starting point for you to understand that you are projecting an image, or people perceive you like at 6 on 10, whereas you're perceiving yourself as 10 on 10. So that's very, very important for any leader to be self-aware, because that's an important path to your success. That's you will be judged all your life. There is no two ways about it, and judged for variety of reasons. Depending on which context you are, there are variety of reasons. But staying specific to your question is that I don't know. Right? Well, there's hardly anyone in this world who knows everything. Right? The point here is that, say, take a typical review. Right? In reviews, we have this jargon saying that this CEO has a habit of asking questions which are out of syllabus. So, on the lighter side, yes, out of syllabus, but it's also important that why did that question come up, right? And CEO is not going to wild time, right? If they're asking that question, that means there's some relevance to that business context at that point of time. So it could be a market information, it could be a competition information, or your internal process, or how good are your number, and so on and so forth, is an important parameter. Yes, you may not be able to answer level 2 or level 3 of a particular question, which is absolutely right. And in a dignified way, you can always say that, look, this is what I know, and the rest I can come back, I can check on it, it's okay. But to trip on the very first question is also not a good sign. So that's one of the, I'd say, parameters of when you get judged, is that you're always underprepared. It can be a judgment, right? Or you don't see the big picture. You are very focused on a particular thing, and you just focus on that, and you cut everything out from there. So then there are a few more parameters on which you get judged, in the sense that some people are absolutely fantastic on numbers, but from process and people point of view, they flounder. So you get judged. So there are various ways on which you get judged, and you will have to see to it that the right messaging goes by your conduct in those meetings.
Agree. And I'm glad you said that, because I think balancing people and business becomes imperative when it comes to leaders. And especially when resilient leaders are being talked about, they always say you need to balance empathy and compassion. But you also have to make sure that your eye is on that hard, rational outlook to protect the business, the overall financial performance. You've been part of such diverse industries in such large organizations. You've worked with many great leaders. How do you think leaders find that right balance in the approach, empathy and financial performance?
Yeah, I mean, one of the important traits of leader is empathy, right? Because no matter which industry you are, in which business you are, whether it's a family business, with a listed company, ultimately you have to deliver through people. Even if you're in government, you're a politician, you're a minister, you have to deliver through people. There's no way you can deliver on behalf of your team. So the foot soldier to the next level at the senior management, everyone is important. So that is something which is important, that since you have to deliver through people, empathy is key. And the CEOs who realize this normally succeed faster. You could be directive in your approach. There's no problem on that, because that's the context of that business. But they have to. It's like in armed forces, you have to be directive, right? You just direct, right? But in armed forces, the officers are the most empathetic people, right? Of their soldiers, of the junior officers or junior commissioned officer, they would know their men in and out from their personal front and so on and so forth. But at a work situation, if it's directive, it's directive. That's important. So that's important. So a leader is expected not only to tell what to do, but it's also important to say how to do. That's very, very important. And that's where you weigh the strength and weakness of that individual and then assign tasks based on that. So the how part is very, very important on that. The second important piece for a leader is to get the entire team aligned to the overall vision or the direction of the organization. Communicate, communicate, and communicate. That's very, very important at every stage. And don't wait for surprises in the end. Bail them out. That's very, very important. That your team will face problems no matter what. And that's where if you bail them out, they regard you, they respect you for life. Bail them out, right? Not that you have to tolerate an underperformer, but if there is a genuine obstacle which that individual is facing, bailing them out is a great thing which you can do. Show concern. That's very, very important. But finally, you have to be fair and firm. So that's how leaders are able to establish their command over the team and are able to get the best out of their team.
No, I'm also drawn to the first point that you said. It's resilience is perhaps about coping and survival. But I think again, last 18 months, this topic's become so popular. It's also become about growing in adversity. Working with the team and the organization. How can leaders, especially the ones who wear the badge of being highly resilient, move from a survival mindset to a growth mindset, especially dealing with uncertain adversities, or business environments?
So yes, you're right that many industries almost were fighting for survival. Okay? So right from a young boy who sells flour on the street, right? And because of the contactless situation, the boys were not even gifting roses to their girlfriends because it's contactless, right? So that business just vanished. That's on a very basic, at a street level, that it just happened. And that poor boy, I was just checking with that guy, the guy didn't know what to do because he knew that these are the seasons, whether it's a Valentine Day or a Dashera or a Diwali, I'll be able to have a great season around that. And I think it's contactless. So I just can't do that. So what do? Right? So they find alternatives. So survival is short term. Okay? You have to do a ICU procedure or something to keep that patient alive. But growth is long term. And we have to understand the difference between that. The attempt to survive cannot last long. It will not take you that far. Okay. So it's like this flower seller had only one way out, is to drop the price dramatically and sell it door to door so that it's not contactless. He leaves it outside the house and he just survived. But he can't take it on a long-term basis because he's not making money. But somehow he's surviving to make both ends meet. And I'm just giving a very pedestrian example, but for you to understand this. And so, say hospitality, right? The hotels just shut down next day. You're roaring one day and the next day it's just not there. So how do you survive? So the hotels came out with an idea of home delivery of foods, right? Taj and Marriott and everyone did that, right? So he said, okay, let the engine keep running to some extent, right? Even if you're making some money, it's okay. It's good to pay the security guard, some electricity bill getting paid, but at least people are connected and saying that something we are trying to keep our ends meet on that. And that's what it lasted. And then the hotels found out, apart from food delivery or a laundry service by Taj, can we become a COVID care center, right? Or can it become a quarantine center, right? And I'm close to the airports, all the foreign arriving, can I become that? So you found another way of doing business. It's still not your normal business, but you're still surviving and scaling it up gradually. And then you reach your new normal, and then you are now growing farther because people say it's now revenge tourism, revenge buying, revenge eating, and so on and so forth. So that's the journey which any leader has to pass through. But survival way of doing business only for survival can't be long term. It has to be short term to keep it alive and kicking. And then either you regain back your business or diversify or relook at the entire thing but survival cannot be long term. So that's the way I would look at it, that something has clicked or worked, don't stick, in the sense that when COVID at the peak, everyone was manufacturing sanitizers, and the stores were flush with sanitizers, right? So that's something was a survival need plus opportunistic. But if you think that I have found a new sweet spot and this will take you in a long term, that's the wrong reading of the situation, because the sales drop because it's no more that critical as one. So one has to read those lines very carefully and then understand that to what extent I'll be on survival and how quickly I move to the growth mode is an important aspect.
Interesting. And you also, Rajesh, very, you picked on the subject of how leaders should help their teams do different things, allow them to perhaps fail, help them out, bail them out.
Yeah.
And I think through this mode of survival and trying to make sure that everyone stays afloat,
Yeah.
not only the teams, leaders have also suffered.
Yeah.
And this term around mental health, which perhaps has always been around, but sort of came at the forefront recently. How do you think resilient leaders, because they're expected to lead the way, how do you think they can help individuals manage stress, which could otherwise lead to these mental health issues, for that matter?
I mean, a lot has been said, and there are many DIY tools which is available for people to manage stress. The problem is that the individual will have to follow that, right? And that's a matter of discipline, right? It's a matter of discipline. So everyone says to de-stress, go for a walk, okay? Don't allow your work to overwhelm you, and while at home, you should not think about work. Easier said than done, because if there is something which is dominating you, then you have no choice but to delve into it and find a way out. So the best way to deal with stress is that if something which is causing you stress, see if you can find a solution to it. That's very, very important. So if you can find a solution to it, so whether you solve that problem or you completely drop that question, either way, you have to find a solution to it. And then you will have to lead by example for you and for your team. And one of the attributes which we have strongly ingrained in Wipro, we call it a Wipro DNA. One of the clear attribute which we say is infectious enthusiasm. As a leader, you have to have that infectious enthusiasm, right? So you cannot show low energy and tell others, charge up guys, you should be on the street, do that. It doesn't work. So it has to be infectious enthusiasm. And third one, which I have personally found very powerful, and I believe a lot in that, is storytelling. In difficult times, get around each other, tell a story. Okay, it might be any, even a childhood story, but it will establish a relevance to that point, right? And it just charges up people in terms of thinking that yes, it's possible, right? You may have say 20 years of work, actually you could have gone through some situation, say that story or listen to some story. Okay, storytelling has been the best way than to deliver a massive motivational speech or get a performance coach to enhance that. A hallmark of leadership is art of storytelling. So storytelling is something which will help a lot, is what I believe.
Agreed. I love anecdotes and storytelling, and I think it always helps to sort of humanize the situation and leaders. And I'm so glad you said that. Easier said than done. Sometimes it gets overwhelming, and I think. Especially for teams, one way or the other, they find mentors, people to talk to, not always, but at least sometimes. But I always feel that there is this often constant pressure on leaders. It could be self-induced because they've been successful, so they want to remain at that place, or externally induced to say, you're the said leader, you have to keep performing, to consistently perform, to succeed. And unfortunately, failure is not an option anymore. Do you think the superhero image needs to change, or do you think it's already changing? People are accepting the leaders with their faults and shortcomings, so to say.
That's the choice which leaders also make, because every leader worth his or her salt wants to be profiled, right, in a positive way. So how does the company see it? How does the media see them? What kind of press they are getting? So there is an inherent, I would say, urge, or they assign tasks to their PR company that how many interviews have featured and how I've been featured and so on and so forth. So there are some leaders who want that kind of image to be portrayed. The second is, if you are a listed company, then the analyst and the market is brutal. There's nothing which you can do about it, because you are a listed company, so you are managing others' money, right? And if you're managing others' money, the shareholders have the right to know. And not only right to know, but right to question. And in the process of question, they can be harsh and so on and so forth. But leaders, and if you see many of the press briefing, whenever a leader exits, a new incumbent comes, apart from whatever achievement or anything is written, they typically write in his tenure, the stock price rose by this percentage, or remained flat, or went down. So that's a very important parameter which has been seen there, that whether this leader is leaving on a high or a drag. And interestingly, you would have read about this article about Enfield, where the CEO revised his own compensation, he was sacked. The business is not doing well and you're getting a raise for yourself, get sacked. So a public company, leaders have to brace for public scrutiny. There is nothing which you can do about it. And there are companies who does not have a high profile leader, but the performance is very high profile. And TCS is the example which comes to my mind, right? Which is absolutely a darling of stock market and any shareholder, retail shareholder. But it does not have that kind of a high profile leadership kind of thing. It's completely flamboyant kind of thing.
Correct.
So there are choices which the leaders will have to make, that how they want to project it. Is it the organization which should take precedence over individual, or individual who takes precedence over organization? Sometimes individual becomes inseparable from the organization. When you are a long tenured leader or a CEO, it almost becomes synonymous with that. It's like ITC YCD, right? YC Deveshwar for his tenure, it was almost synonymous.
Yeah.
So that's the choice which leaders will have to make. They can't avoid public scrutiny.
Okay. One last thing, Rajesh, and then coming back to storytelling. You've had such a rich career over 30 years. Can you give me or think of an instance where, which taught you the importance of resilience and helped you become a better leader?
So I would like to narrate an example which was at the beginning of my career, way back in 1992, while I was working for government, a government company was acquiring another government company. A central government organization, NTPC, was acquiring a state government enterprise. And I was in Uttar Pradesh, thick of action at that point of time. And we were supposed to manage the transition in terms of their employment terms and benefits and facilities to the new organization terms. And a huge amount of unrest, union negotiation, volatility, and so on and so forth. You can imagine what happens in UP. So we were trying our best. We were trying our best in terms of making them see reason and so on and so forth. It was just not happening. Of course, you pick some lessons from the leaders. I was too junior to lead the show. But what I picked up is that if you make a stance and stay on it, And if you believe your stance is fair and you have arguments to prove that why it is fair, then stay with it, you will succeed. Okay? And that's where our resilience came on, that they kept on pushing us back and we kept on saying, this is where we are. They again came back with some force. Again, we said, this is the best we can do. Again, so multiple times it happened, and it's finally we were able to say, I'll not say we win over it, but we were successful in allowing them to see rational in our approach and understand the science and the maths behind it. That approach helped, and that's what it helped, that you should be very clear what you are doing. If you have a fair argument, then stay with it, you will definitely succeed. But one cannot predict that this is the timeline and it will go exactly the way you have thought. So when the second acquisition happened in Orissa, I was again identified for that. The same time tested formula didn't work there. The pressures were same, but the method had to be very, very different because the needs and other things were different. But the underlying message remains same, that if you have a good argument, if you believe in it, then stay with it. You will sail away.
Wow. No, I agree. Stay on your target, adapt as you go along, and believe in what you're doing. And I think that's what makes so wonderful leaders. Thank you, Rajesh. Such a wonderful conversation. I'm glad I could spend this time with you, and I'm sure everyone would find it very, very interesting. Thank you so much again.
Thank you. My pleasure. Have a good day. Bye.